Hey guys, what is up? It is Sam from the Whitfield Report, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review of the Matrix 4, Matrix Resurrections. Before we begin with the actual review, though, um, I would just like to say that, well, the Matrix franchise isn't like my favorite franchise. It is definitely kind of within my top 10 favorite film franchises. I would say probably at like number 6. Um, Obviously, the first Matrix film that came out in 1999 was, a revolutionary sci-fi uh, thriller. Very good movie. And to be honest, maybe it's just because I grew up with The Matrix, but I honestly didn't hate the sequels either. Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. Yes, obviously they have some problems and some flaws with them, but I think they tend to get a bad rap, and I actually kind of tend to enjoy them. For what they are. They're fun movies to watch, and overall, the Matrix trilogy, the original one, is a really good film series that, in my mind, told a really complete story and really did not need to be, added on to. With that being said, Matrix 4. Matrix Resurrections. I'm gonna say this. There were some parts of the movie that uh, I think they handled better than I expected they would have. But for the most part, I kind of have to agree with a lot of other reviewers that this film was somewhat disappointing. I wouldn't say this is the worst film of the year of 2021 I've seen. I would still say that goes to the Many Saints of Newark. That movie was a huge letdown, especially as a fan of The Sopranos. Um, and I talked about that once in a live stream with my friend Mark Hunt when we were doing our James Bond No Time to Die review. We talked a little bit about Many Saints of Newark as well. Um, in essence, if you just want the short version of what I think of Matrix Resurrections, I've honestly been referring to Matrix Resurrections as the Meh-trix, because it's not terrible. It's not great. It's kind of meh. Now, as I usually like to do when I do reviews, I like to start off with the positives and the negatives. And then I usually like to start off with the positives, and then I like to dive into some of the negatives, as I usually do with reviews. Spoilers in this interview too. In this review too. Although, to be honest, there really isn't that much to spoil, I think, and I'll explain why in just a sec. So, in the positive column, pretty much the only positive column that I can think of outright is the fact that they didn't kill off Neo in this film, which I was kind of surprised by, because given what they've done with characters like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in the new Star Wars trilogy, and then given what the fact of what happened to James Bond, they do tend to like to kill off major leading characters in all of Hollywood franchises, particularly male characters these days. And so the fact that they didn't kill Neo off in Resurrections was, that was refreshing at least. And the fact that they didn't, kill him off in favor for, Trinity, like, taking over as the One or something like that, was also good. Now, I know that, technically, spoiler alert, Trinity is also the One in this new, Matrix movie, which kind of makes no sense. Wouldn't that then make both Neo and Trinity the two instead of just the one? It makes more sense that they would be the two, I guess. But hey, potato, potato, what have you. I keep hearing criticisms that they really emasculated Neo in this film. And I would agree that that's kind of true to a point, but I would also argue that Neo's character, the character of Thomas Anderson rather, kind of started out as emasculated in the first Matrix film, right? He kind of started out as an emasculated character. And then, through his journey discovering that he is, in fact, the One, he gains confidence in himself and becomes the hero by the end of the Matrix, and that's the hero's journey. So they, they kind of did the same thing a little bit here, I guess. So that didn't bother me as much. However, now we move on to my criticisms of this film. And ultimately, my biggest criticism of this film is that it is a pure nostalgia trap, blatantly. And it breaks the fourth wall a little too much. Now, what do I mean by that? This film was literally, in some ways, a shot-for-shot remake of the original Matrix film. That's why I'm saying it's a little hard to spoil this movie, because honestly, if you've seen the first Matrix film, then you've already pretty much seen Matrix Resurrections, or a large portion of it. You've already seen this film as well, if you've seen the original one. They make a lot of callbacks to the first film, to the point where, like, they will... they recreated the first opening scene where Trinity is beating up the police officers in the motel, and diving on and off rooftops, in the opening scene. They even make a reference to that, being like, well, gee, this is familiar. They literally say that. The character of Bugs says that. And they do other things like that where, Neo, when he first meets Trinity in this film, part of the whole thing is Neo has suffered from amnesia in this film, so he can kind of remember some of the events of the Matrix, but he thinks it's like a dream because that's what the machines have rebuilt him, and like they've kind of like programmed him to think that the Matrix trilogy was a dream or whatever. And that's another kind of flaw I have with this movie, but I'll get to that in a sec. Um, so when he's meeting Trinity in the cafe, he shakes her hand, and then it literally uh, cuts to him shaking her hand in the club in the first movie. So they literally they recreate this a lot of scenes in this movie, almost frame for frame, and then show a frame from another movie recreating the same thing. Almost as if to say, huh? You remember this, oh, don't you remember this nostalgia? Now look, I like nostalgia as much as the next guy, but there is a way to do it subtly. One of the things I liked about No Time to Die, as I mentioned in my review podcast for that film, is the fact that they definitely made nods to the previous Bond films, but they did it in such a way that was subtle, that the hardcore Bond fans would pick up on, but it wasn't in your face, like this film was. They did things like, they had James Bond living in Ian Fleming's house, GoldenEye in Jamaica, right? And the Bond fans, the hardcore Bond fans like myself, we know that that's an Easter egg. But it doesn't take us out of the film to remind us of this nostalgia. Whereas this film constantly just recreated scenes, to remind us of nostalgia. Not only that, but this film broke the fourth wall a little too much, to the point where, like, people in the movie were talking how they were obsessed with the Matrix trilogy as kids, and how, it almost ruined their lives and whatnot in some cases. So it was very, self-aware in terms of that. There's even one scene where Neo's talking to his boss or his business partner. And by the way, they made Neo a game designer in Matrix 4 because I guess rather than being a hacker, right, like he was in the, in the initial one, he was like a hacker. And in this one, he's a video game designer. And I kind of rolled my eyes at that and was kind of like, oh, they just did that because all the hip young kids want to be video game designers the other day. So they decided to modernize Neo in terms of that, just, because that's what the kids are into. They made it so that the initial franchise of Matrix movies were actually Matrix games in this canon, which is hilarious because there actually was a trilogy of Matrix games as well. So again, breaking the fourth wall, kind of. They literally say at one point in the movie, Neo's talking to his partner in the game design firm, and his partner says, yeah, Warner Brothers is basically making us do a fourth Matrix game, even though we don't want to. But if we have to, we're going to be the ones to develop it. Which, I kind of think that maybe that was the Wachowskis, subtly letting the audience know that that's what was going on. But again, it was a little too self-aware. It didn't need to be that self-aware, patting itself on the back for the original series and whatnot. Honestly, none of the characters were really that well fleshed out. I understood the fact that like Neo had been resurrected and had been rebuilt by the machines, but why? They didn't really make a good explanation of that. And I know that they resurrected Trinity for the same reason, and there was like a very convoluted thing, and this is another gripe I have. Neil Patrick Harris plays the main villain in this film, the Analyzer, who I guess has replaced the Architect in this film, and he says that he rebuilt Trinity and Neo in order to solve an energy crisis that the machines were having after, the war from the first trilogy. And it was almost laughable, but he said that he was using, the power of, basically the power of love that Neo and Trinity had for each other, and he was harnessing the power of love, basically, in order to power this, city, while kind of keeping them in separate pods, and their yearning for each other would somehow fuel this city. And at that point, like, I kind of chuckled, and I was almost expecting for The Power of Love, the song by Huey Lewis, to kick in at any minute. So that was kind of an eye roller. And the other thing too is I never really bought the romance between Neo and Trinity, even in the first one. They didn't really present it in the first Matrix film at all, and it seemed really shoehorned in there in Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Resurrections. In fact, that's kind of one of the things I have, mocked about Matrix Reloaded, is the fact that I don't know if it's Keanu and Karen and Moss, or if it's the script or what, but they were really stiff and really motionless. I just never bought into that romance at all. And I still really don't here because, again, they're both just very stiff and robotic in kind of how they interact with each other, Trinity and Neo. I never really felt the depth of love, per se, right? But then, the other thing I don't get is why did the robots need to rebuild Neo and Trinity? What happened after the Matrix trilogy, that caused everything to go haywire again? They didn't really explain it. The whole point of the Matrix trilogy was, at the end of Revelations, was Neo sacrificed himself, and that was going to set everything right between man and machine, and they would be able to coexist with each other. Right? Now, obviously, nothing can last forever, but what happened to cause that rift? They never really explain that in the film, and, if you're going to, resurrect a film franchise, you might want to give it a good reason for being resurrected. No pun intended. Like that. So it was just very confusing. The way that they killed off Morpheus off screen, and then brought him back as computer program Morpheus, which is what this version of Morpheus is. He's not Lawrence Fishburne Morpheus. He's computer program Morpheus. Was really weird. They didn't really explain why his character existed really well either. So I kind of had issues with that. But I think one of my biggest complaints, other than the fact that this film was basically just a nostalgia honey trap, was the way they handled Agent Smith. And yes, folks, Agent Smith does appear in this film. And my biggest complaint, other than the fact that Hugo Weaving wasn't back, right? That's my biggest complaint, was that they couldn't bring Hugo Weaving back to play Agent Smith. Now I get that, it could have been contract issues, could have been money disputes, all that, yada yada. I get that. So, maybe in terms of the real world, there was a reason why Hugo Weaving couldn't come back. I don't know what that is. But regardless, aside from the fact that Hugo Weaving isn't in this movie at all as Agent Smith, my biggest gripe with Smith is that the guy that they chose to play him in this movie not only does he not look anything like Agent Smith from the first movie, he doesn't even have any of Smith's mannerisms. Right? In this movie, they kind of explain the fact that, Smith was exiled and a large portion of his programming was, rewritten, so that's why he looks different. And okay, that I can buy as to why they got a new actor, but for God's sake, couldn't they have at least, given him some of Hugo Weaving's mannerisms, or couldn't the guy have at least tried to, emulate Hugo Weaving a little bit, maybe sound a little bit like him in terms of the way he spoke and his speech patterns and whatnot? Instead, we just got a dude bro who was playing Smith, and the only reason we know that it's Agent Smith is because somehow when Neo meets him, he senses somehow that that's Agent Smith. Which I don't know how that works either, because last time I heard, the Matrix wasn't related to the Jedi. So, I don't know how Neo's sensing Smith, but he is, for whatever reason, and we only know that Smith is there because Neo tells us that, hey, this blonde dude bro, that's Agent Smith. So, those are just some of my major kind of gripes with this film. I don't want to go on for too long, but, like I said, not a horrible film, but not a great film either. Like I said, it's the meh tricks. Just a nostalgia cash grab. And disappointing, but not entirely unexpected either, I guess. At least it was better than Star Wars. I can say that. So anyway, I realize I went a little long with this review, but I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm probably going to be doing a review of Cobra Kai seasons 1 through 4 later this week, once I finish that. Because I haven't done a review on any of the other seasons, and I do enjoy that. And I might do a review of Narcos, Mexico, at some point too. I don't know. I haven't seen Spider-Man yet in theaters, but I am planning on reviewing that as well when I do get a chance to see it. So if there are any series or anything that you would like me to review, let me know. Oh, and then once Dexter New Blood ends next week, I'll be reviewing that as well too. Kind of, this mini series and my thoughts on it as a whole. So anyway, guys, I haven't done a movie review like this in a long time, so I appreciate you guys sticking with me to the end. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video, and be sure to tune in to the podcast on Saturday nights at 10 p.m. That's when we live stream. And thank you for tuning in. From the Whitfield Report, I'm Sam Whitfield. Thank you for watching. God bless, God, freedom, Lexi in that order, and I will see you in the next video.